21% of Americans prefer alternative medicine to conventional medicine. But is alternative medicine worth it?
When we say alternative medicine, we mean any practice that is designed to achieve healing that you can't get at a traditional doctor's office or a hospital. So that includes a wide range
So many things.
of services and experiences, from acupuncture, homeopathy, and naturopathy, Chinese and Eastern medicine, herbal medicine, meditation, energy healing, Tai Chi, Reiki, massage, yoga,
Breathwork.
chiropractic, hypnosis, sound baths, medical marijuana or use of drugs for therapeutic purposes, essential oils and aromatherapy, ayahuasca, crystals,
So many.
a wide range.
So some people consider it woo-woo, but others swear by these methods of healing. Chances are that you've heard of something on this list, and you might have a strong opinion about whether or not it's worth the money. So let's talk about it. Welcome to NetNet with Lizzy and Lissa, where we analyze hidden costs and empower you to make your own damn decisions in life. Each episode covers a different facet of life, and at the end of each episode, we each give our take on whether something is a net positive or net negative.
I'm Lizzy, a strategist and consultant with 17 years of experience in finance and investing.
And I'm Lissa, an accredited financial counselor and a personal finance content creator. We're best friends who talk about money
And everything else. First up, running the numbers on alternative medicine. What do we got?
So the global complementary and alternative medicine market size was valued at $135 billion in 2023, and revenue is expected to grow over $350 billion by 2030. And that's not counting everything that we mentioned. I don't know what they consider in that category.
All right, so a lot of people spending money on this.
A lot of people are spending money on it.
Which is interesting because we think of it as this like idiosyncratic alternative thing.
Yep.
So a 2023 survey by Cancer Therapy Advisor shows that 70% of cancer patients report using complementary or alternative medicine as part of their cancer care, which is significant.
Significant. According to a 2021 survey by Statista, around 24% of adults in the United States reported using herbal medicines, supplements, or teas to treat health problems.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm one
Flat
of them.
tummy tea?
Those are my not those teas for me, but these are my Chinese herbal teas on the table here for those watching the video.
Ma'am. You're about that tea life.
About that tea life.
In the same study, around 10% of adults reported using non-prescribed drugs such as marijuana and psychedelics as alternative medicines.
What's 1 in 10? And yoga is one of the most commonly used approaches of complementary health, meaning holistic wellness alongside Western medicine. And it saw a 5% increase of use in a 5-year span from 2012 to 2017. And I'm guessing that has just risen to today.
Yeah, low-key, that feels low. We're saying 10% of adults report doing yoga in 2012, 15% by 2017. I feel like, maybe it's just being in LA,
Maybe
but
it's being in LA with a bunch
I feel
of
like
yogis.
the percentage is pretty high.
Yeah. Well, so these numbers from all these studies, they barely scratch the surface on alternative medicine. But let's talk about it. Is alternative medicine worth it?
Let's go.
What do you think?
So I think first it's important to look at why these are considered alternative in the first place, as opposed to just commonly accepted practices. So what's your take?
Well, I think that's our name for it, right? But they are medicinal. They are practices that people use across the globe in different ways throughout history. I think a lot of times alternative medicine gets assumed to be just like Chinese Eastern medicine, and there's a Western and Eastern.
Definitely.
But it's not as clear cut as that, right? Like there's so much overlap. So for example, for those watching the video, I have a bunch of my Chinese herbal teas here given to me by my acupuncturist that I take for fertility and overall wellness. When I look up what's in them, and I look up like what herb or what plant this comes from, it comes from like the same plant where you would, like for anti-inflammatory stuff, like not just turmeric, but like, something like that, where it's either similar compounds or a similar effect that you would get from taking like an ibuprofen,
Right.
which has other chemicals in it. This is just in its more natural form.
Right. I think you're right in that there's this very Western white people view. I'm gonna just say it, a Eurocentric kind of, colonization type of view that this is the right way to do this, and that inherently dismisses other views. And the reality is that historically, most societies, if not all societies, used plant-based medicine, herbal medicine, and those are the kind of precursors to most of the modern drugs that we have today. Just exactly to your point. So why do you think there is this kind of dichotomy?
Well, I can't give you the full background in history, but some thoughts that I have on what we consider to be Western medicine. And I consider Western medicine to be like if you have medical insurance, the things that would cover. So systemically, it's like, what would that cover?
Right.
So you go to what is called a doctor who goes through a specific type of training, right? Med school, residency, becoming a doctor. Like what those people treat, I would consider to be your traditional.
Sure, I agree.
What it's called to be today, Western medicine. I think that there's a huge range of doctors. There's a lot who are very specialized in a field and who know how to fix their one thing and some of the adjacent things to that thing.
Sure.
In my experience with this Western medicine, a lot of it has been in treating the symptoms and making life more comfortable for you at this given moment in time, which is not always a bad thing, right? Sometimes you need a painkiller. Sometimes you just need something for that quick fix right now because you need it.
Right.
And that's just overgeneralizing, of course. But for like all the other, what we call alternative medicine that I've tried, it's really getting to like this overall health and wellness.
Right.
It's not a quick fix. It's a long-term plan. And it's not just like if your knee hurts, they're not just treating your knee. They're figuring out what's happening in your brain or in your toe or whatever is going on in your whole body.
Right. It's really interesting to think about that in terms of like Western capitalistic societies, and treating the symptoms creates this little wheel. If I want to be cynical about it, it's a big business, obviously. Insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies. Sheesh. So
all these exposés these
I don't
days.
think it necessarily started out that way, but I think that there's some fact to that it's evolved into a very big business that is not necessarily incentivized to cure people.
Yep.
It's incentivized to keep people coming back for treatment.
But interestingly, the stat we opened up with, one of the stats we opened up with is that this alternative medicine is a huge industry too.
Right.
So is that concerning in any way?
Ooh. Damn, that's a good question.
Right.
I think I find it to be a positive that people are open-minded, and that I think people, again, this might be my own LA bias because we know the environment we live in is definitely a bubble, but I feel like a lot of people are becoming more health conscious and wellness conscious in general. Like we've talked about with therapy, like we've talked about like holistic wellness versus just your physical body or, your energy, how you feel overall. So I think that's a positive. And if that's what you want to put your dollars to, that's what you want to put your dollars to. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's tough because like even with the insurance thing, most of these alternative medicine or alternative healing practices are not covered by insurance by anyway. You're just straight up paying whatever the market value is on that particular thing. So it could be, both are big industries. You kind of have to use your own judgment on what you believe each treatment to be for. Try it and see if you like it, And most importantly, does it fit within your budget?
Right.
Because if you can't afford it and you're going broke using all these healing methods, you know, it's just going to cause you more stress.
Well, and that's another interesting element. Is there an inequity there in the accessibility of some of these healing modalities for people who don't have that disposable income to throw at it? Maybe they have insurance, maybe not, but that's not necessarily covering these things. So are these people limited to the traditional medicine options?
Yeah, I mean, as a daughter of Filipino immigrants, like, try telling my mom that, like, I'm doing fertility treatments, but also because not through a fertility doctor only, but I'm also doing acupuncture once a week and taking Chinese herbs and, you know, doing all these things for my health holistically. Like, try to explain that to my mom, like, if she knew what I was spending.
Right.
Each acupuncture visit that I have right now, and it's weekly, once a week, is over $200. So if you, access for sure. I think there's multiple layers, like the mentality of, is this even worth it?
Right.
Worth my money if I can't afford it, especially if insurance doesn't cover it? Why would I try it?
Right.
Right. So there's that part. And then there's the actual, like, cost itself.
Right. Which this is just so interesting because thinking of herbal medicine specifically, it has so much cultural meaning for different groups. And I can think my stepdad is Mexican. I grew up with a Mexican extended family. And, my grandma would always like, I'm going to make you some herb. I'm going to heal something with some herb. That's how it's Vicks and it's herb.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is kind of at its truest nature, inherently a low cost, accessible form of healing for a lot of these groups. I mean, the town she grew up in, they probably didn't even have a doctor.
Yeah.
It's a tiny town in New Mexico. And so that's what you did, right? You developed these skills and abilities and knowledge, someone in the family did, because those other forms of medicine are inaccessible. And now in many ways that has reversed. And then there's this other element of people exploiting those traditional forms of, I mean, a traditional as in like truly traditional, way back forms of medicine in order to make it trendy or cool or build a brand around something and, really capitalizing on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's tough because on one hand, it probably works, because if it's worked for like centuries, then there's something to it.
Right.
And, if some cultures keep that as their like secret, healing,
sure.
This juice, special juice that they have, like, cool. Whereas other people are like, well, let's market this, make it a product. Not only can we make money off of it, but it can help people. Like, I feel mixed feelings about that.
It's tough. I mean, I think that goes into the classic appropriation question. If there is some kind of, cultural meaning to a specific group of people, and then, it's marketed by someone that's outside of that group.
Yeah.
Right. So talk to us a little bit more about your experience with alternative medicine.
So I never had a background with alternative medicine. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew, like, you go to the doctor, they give you medicine, and you get better. So the path that led me towards trying alternative medicine in the last couple of years has been Western medicine not changing anything for me, and then to the point where I felt like Western medicine was making things even worse.
For sure, yeah.
So I'll give one example, a little personal, but like I was getting frequent UTIs, and I went to different doctors, like my OBGYN, my primary care, who ended up sending me to an endocrinologist to see if it was like a hormone thing. And no one could pinpoint what it was. It's just like, oh, you have low hormones. Okay, so let's wait and, there was a lot of like, let's wait and see and do a blood test in a couple months to see if your hormones come back, and try this and try that and then come back. And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, well, as long as it's not affecting your day-to-day lifestyle, like, and I'm like, what does that mean? So they're like, are you in pain? Like, I'm like, no, I'm not in pain. I can like walk just fine.
It's a bitch, bro.
Yeah. Like, and I'm like, okay.
No one wants a UTI.
Yeah. Like, so it got to the point where it was like, I was taking antibiotics a lot, and it would get rid of the thing, but then I felt like the antibiotics were having this longer term negative effect on me.
This whole
right
cycle.
So it was like whole cycle. So then I finally went to like a naturopath who was like, well, let's try to get your body working again because of the low hormones, the low estrogen, and the thin like lining that you have. That's what's causing this. And so it was more like, all right, but then it was like, let's get you on all these supplements.
Right.
And there was a point I was on like 8, 9, 10 different supplements. And I was like, so these are more natural remedies and it's a more long-term plan, but it's also just more medicine. Right. Trying to get to the root of the problem, at least. That was at least the differentiator. But it was like, it's all trial and error from there. But how much money is spent along the way?
For sure. I think a key point that you hit on, which I've experienced myself and I've seen a lot, is that in traditional medicine, you go to a doctor, you have a particular issue. One, it's treatment of the symptoms, but it's also like feeling like your concerns are not really being heard, being taken seriously. The intensity of them is just like not registering. And so I think a lot of people feel like they have to fend for themselves, right? Like, I am not being advocated for. I have to advocate for myself in this traditional healthcare system, but I also have to take it upon myself to try to find some kind of solution.
Yeah.
And, so an example, in the past few years, my dad has had a lot of health challenges, and he was just like dramatically losing weight. Like, I mean, scary, and was seeing all of these doctors. No one was figuring it out. But at the same time, he basically just couldn't eat food. So he was trying to take different supplements to just figure it out. And it turned out that one of these supplements was actually exacerbating the issue. It wasn't, completely causing it, but it certainly didn't help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand the sentiment of like, I can't eat.
Yeah.
I need food. I need to do whatever I can, because a doctor can be like, yeah, come back in 3 months or even a month. All right. What do I do in those next 4 weeks going through my day to day when I'm just trying to survive?
Yeah.
And I think I have noticed a different caliber of care with some of the alternative medicine experiences that I've had.
Yeah.
One, that it's, more holistic typically. But the attentiveness has been a different experience.
Those two things I agree with, like that it's holistic, right? Like if I come in, because I've been having stomach pains, they're not just like asking, what did I eat, right? It's like, what has your sleep schedule been like? Or what, have you been exercising? Do you have pain in any other areas of your body? Like the holistic part, love it. But also the attentiveness, right? It's because it's more of a complex puzzle to solve than just, oh, my elbow hurts and it's tennis elbow and I need to rest it and take ibuprofen. Right? Like it's more holistic because, maybe it's my wrist that's tight that's pulling on my elbow.
Right.
But like, so you got to like go further. So I think that part of alternative medicine, 100% great and believe in. I just wish there was more integration. I think it's happening more and more, but like I wish there was more integration between like Western medicine, as we call it, and either Eastern or broaden that to alternative medicine practices.
Right. So like as you're going through your fertility journey,
So fertility is another one. Yeah.
you're having these kind of two dual responses.
Yeah.
What's
so this
that
is
like?
actually interesting. So I've gone through one round of IVF. We're on kind of a pause right now while other things are getting figured out. It didn't pan out. We weren't able to get eggs from that first cycle. But interestingly, the fertility doctor that I go to here in Los Angeles, she recommended me to my acupuncturist because they're working in tandem together to figure out what's going on with my body, right? Why can't I conceive naturally? And so it was interesting though, because throughout the process, they're working together because they both have their different approaches to try to get my body working properly. In order to have a kid, like I'm working properly in other ways. Like my brain is fine, everything else is fine. But they're working together. But throughout the process, they've disagreed on things. They've had different takes on, like, you know, my acupuncturist will say, like, let's take 3 to 6 months of acupuncture herbal teas to get your hormones working on their own again, right? Whereas the fertility doctor's goal is to get you pregnant. So she's like, well, we can wait and wait and wait, but if your goal is to get pregnant, let's do injections and let's start it up again. So then, yes, they're working together and it's great. I love that I have both of them. But the ultimate decision still comes to me of like what I want to do. I don't have a clear recommendation of this is the plan.
Right.
Like let's start this next cycle next month. There's no, I have to decide. And, you know, I'm 37 going on 38. I don't know if I'm making the right choices. So I just have to go with my gut feeling.
Right.
Like,
so that's challenging.
Yeah. So that's fertility. But like, if you expand that scope to other areas, like the stat about cancer patients, using alternative medicine as complementary to whatever chemo,
radiation, etc.
Those types of therapies. I wish that it was more included in the system itself,
right?
So where it's covered by insurance, or like it's complementary. Like you have both, you get attacked is the wrong word, but attacked from all angles. Like you get the eastern side, the western side, the alternative side. You
have kind of a super team.
Super. Wouldn't it just be great to have like the pocket doctor? Like,
right?
Is there an app for that already?
There's
probably an app, right? Like you have your one go-to doctor who talks, like, I guess that's your primary care physician.
Yeah, that's a whole other story.
Yeah. You know, like that holistically evaluates you, knows what you're up to, and it's better diagnoses and better treatments for things.
You know what? That made me think of something when you were talking earlier about kind of the specialist system, which is important, right? You know, in a traditional medicine, you're not going to know everything and all the nuances of every system of the body, et cetera.
Yeah.
But that often is disconnected from that holistic view. And I think some of that is because when we look at like research, clinical studies, they tend to be very specialized, and there are fewer that look at the broader health system on a particular disorder or disease. You know, like if you have stomach issues, there aren't going to be as many studies, if any, that look at the effect of exercise on that, right? But the reality is those things are all important, right? The entire system of your health affects the kind of individual subsets of it. I had that experience. I get chronic, incredibly debilitating migraines. I've seen many, many doctors, and I had to go to my neurologist and be like, well, is it my hormones?
Yeah.
I used to have these hormones from my IUD.
Yeah.
I stopped. That's when everything peaked.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, yeah, there's some research on that, and it could definitely be that, but it's not my specialty. So, you know, we can try it. And, you know, same thing with diet, with exercise, with sleep. All of these things affect your entire well-being, and yet they're not necessarily considered when you're going in to get treatment for a very specific issue.
Yeah, I do hate that, where it's like a lot of times doctors look for one cause of a thing when it could be just like a mix of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different things that culminate. You mix it up in a pot, and that's why you have a migraine, right? Like,
for sure.
So I understand triggers. Like there's definitely things that affect, like, I'm not going to rewrite medical books, right? I'm not even in the medical field. So, but
we are not doctors.
We're not doctors, by the way. Disclaimer.
This is not medical advice. There's two people bullshitting.
Yeah. But so something I did want to talk about when it came to alternative medicine is I've been doing a lot of these therapies in the last 2 years related to fertility, but my overall health, now that I actually have more discretionary income for it, and I'm more open to it. I definitely haven't ditched Western medicine. Like, that's my go-to if something's wrong. But I do want to talk about the time and energy that I spend on it, I guess.
Sure.
Because like I mentioned, I've been going to acupuncture straight for 1 year now, weekly. And price tag is one thing, but it's a whole thing. You kind of have to eat, or my doctor tells me to eat. My acupuncturist tells me to eat before an appointment. Otherwise, you might feel nauseous.
Right.
And so I one time didn't, because I was just like, I think I'll be fine. I almost threw up after. And I don't know, like, I don't understand the science or what it is behind it, but like, I didn't feel great. So now when I go to acupuncture, I make sure to get up early enough to have a meal.
Sure.
But not too close to acupuncture, because you're lying down with needles stuck in you. Like, I don't want to eat right before and lay down. So it's a whole process that I have to proactively think about. I have to think about what I wear, because you have to have access to the points in your body.
Right.
You can change there. But like, so it's all these things that take a lot of time and energy. And I don't know that if I was working full-time 9 to 5, would I be able to keep up with my acupuncture schedule? I can do it now because I'm self-employed and I carve out the time for it, but I don't know when I was working
right
like hella if I would have been able to do that.
I think that's brings me to a kind of adjacent point that's really interesting, is I think people put a lot of inherent implicit trust in the traditional medical system, typically until they have an experience that breaks that trust, right? Or like you found this wasn't working. This may be my perception, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily give these alternative medicine kind of options the same amount of the benefit of the doubt, right? And so the investment, both financially, time, is judged differently. And I think some people, the takeaway is like, okay, if I go and do this, but what if it doesn't work? And then what a waste.
Yeah.
Whereas that could happen with anything. That could happen with a medication. I mean, I've spent months on a medication and been like, yeah, that ain't it. Yeah. That's not for me. I'm just coming off of a migraine medication right now.
Have you ever went to a restaurant and had a bad meal? That was a waste.
Right.
Like, I guess.
Yeah.
But now you know to never go there again and to never recommend that to anyone else again.
Right. But do you think people judge the costs of these? So there's the absolute cost in terms of finance or in terms of time or resources or whatever. I feel like there's like a multiplier put on that for these relative to traditional medicine, because of some of the judgments around it.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. You take a quicker fix, right? Like you have a headache and you take Tylenol or Advil. More likely than not, a headache will subside in a couple of hours. If you have a headache and you decide you want to try acupuncture or whatever, massage or something like that,
oils or something,
you might not get a quick fix. You might get a longer term fix if you do it consistently in the long term, but that's going to take going how many times, right?
Right.
And so because it's going to take longer to see results, if any, right? There's no results promised, but and it's also, so it's hard to know that there's an actual result, and it's probably going to cost more in general,
right?
Financially, time, energy in
Right.
general. Definitely, there's going to be, like, I think people, there's a higher bar to whether or not someone would be willing to spend on something, because it's like, to protect themselves
Right.
financially, like it's a risk.
Right.
It's a big risk. It's a bigger risk.
It
to
kind
take.
of equates to like in financial terms, like a long-term investment horizon, where, you know, if you're buying stocks,
Yeah.
it's going to go up and down, right? But over the long term, most likely it will trend upward.
Yeah.
But if you're judging it from a short-term lens, you might be like, fuck,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then you freak out.
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting, and it speaks to a mindset about health in general, which, you know, thinking of so many of these things, you know, acupuncture for sure, energy healing, massage, yoga, chiropractic, you know, I think these are just some that like I've experienced. Meditation, there are practices. They're not like you go and have a procedure and it solves an issue. It is a practice that you integrate into your life that often is more preventative than, you know, healing than reactive, or, you know, healing a particular symptom. And I think that, again, kind of speaks to that mindset of our society, which is quick fix.
Yeah.
And I don't have time for this. I'm not willing to invest
Because you got to get back
in
to
my
work.
health.
You can't,
Bro.
right? Like, who has time to figure out the root of a problem when you just need to get by for today, because, you know, you have to get back to work. You got to get back to the family. You got to pick up the kids from
Right.
school. There's so many things in the way of taking care of your own long-term health and quality
Right.
of wellness and health, that you're willing to give up sacrifices as long as you can function.
Right.
enough.
And if anyone, I know you and I have both experienced this, if you have ever experienced burnout, you know that that is a false belief that short-term fix is going to benefit you more in the long run.
Yep.
I actually just read something really interesting about that, and it was a good reminder for me of really like maintaining the process and not getting so caught up in the short term. Because ultimately, like, for example, this perfect example, I had a presentation due today. I was up till 3 a.m. last night working on this.
Is that why you didn't text me back?
Props.
Okay.
And in my head, I'm like, this is a short-term sacrifice for something that's really important to me. At the same time, in the long run, the detriment of that sleep debt or getting out of my routine or just the mindset of that self-sacrifice is going to catch up with me eventually. Like, if I continue to do that and not prioritize my sleep, which I've actually been good at overall.
Yeah.
But if I continue to do that, it will catch up with me and not just set me back, you know, a few hours. It'll set me back a month or 2 months.
Yep.
And I think people very commonly make that mistake. And I, you know, speaking from experience.
Well, because it's hard to quantify.
Right.
Short term, long term, it's hard to quantify. You
Sure.
won't know until you're there
Until you're
and
fucked.
burnt out. Yeah, until you're burnt out.
Until you run yourself to the ground.
Exactly. And so I think that's really interesting to point out, because it's really less about, like, you know, putting one thing off one time here and now, because like, let's be real, that's life, right?
It's life, yeah.
You have to deal with those ups and downs, like what you have time for and what you don't. But it's the compounding of them.
Yes.
1 turns into 2, turns into 4, turns into 8, right? It's not
Compound
like,
interest,
yeah.
compound losses.
I know how to add. I don't know how to multiply. But like, it's that, like, if you start putting everything off, like you said, you're not just going to take one weekend to catch up on sleep. It's going to take you like 3 months to catch up on sleep.
I was just reading about this.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The effect of sleep debt. I wish I had this stat in front of me. I'm going to butcher it, but I just looked into this last week. And it was something like missing 1 hour of sleep sets you back 10 days.
Oh my God.
It was wild. It blew my mind. It was more than a week, for sure, per hour of sleep debt.
Yeah.
Wild.
Sleep. I love my sleep.
I love it. It just don't love me back.
So aside from the financial cost of these alternative medicine practices, what would you say are the other costs?
I think there's a big social cost in terms of being judged. I think there's a stigma around a lot of these.
Yeah, earlier I said some people consider these things woo-woo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, now considered like a derogatory term.
Yeah.
I'm learning. Yeah.
I would say it's derogatory.
Yeah, it's judgmental. So I think there, just like you said with your mom, she's going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? I think there's that social rejection, which speaks to our base psychological needs of belonging, right? Mm-hmm. We all want to belong and be accepted. And people are going to be like, they're going to laugh at you. What are you doing? You're wasting your money. Because there is a stigma around a lot of these things. And I think that's kind of the biggest social cost that I see.
So, like, obviously there's a spectrum, right? Like, you tell someone you do yoga and they're like, man, I should do that too because I need to be more flexible or whatever they think yoga is for. If I tell people that I used to go to an energy healer, they're like, woo-woo, that's woo-woo.
For sure.
And I'm like, no, but you either get it or you don't, right?
And so I think that's another interesting component of this kind of Western versus alternative dichotomy is, as I was doing some research for this, a lot of it comes down to what is irrefutable evidence in studies, right? And I am a very rational-minded person. I put a lot of value in science and academia and all that kind of thing. But personally, I'm also aware that there's so much that we as humans cannot understand and cannot quantify, and that science changes over time. And what we know to be true now was not what we knew to be true 100 years ago. So for me personally, I don't need to have irrefutable, scientifically proven in a lab evidence of something to be open to it. Because I also think, why not? If it won't hurt.
Yeah.
If I feel like there's something positive, and then that also leads me to the placebo effect. Let's say there's not, actually at its base form a benefit to energy healing, right? But the placebo effect of you believing that there is has scientifically proven to be true, to have physiological benefits.
Yeah.
And so why not? The act of doing something that you feel is positive for your body has just as many benefits as the effects of that act.
I mean, and that's kind of like what you would call the placebo effect is not actually a placebo effect. It's actually
exactly
the healing itself.
Yeah, exactly. That's
like
the irony.
You believing can change the way your body operates.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. And so, to me, I think there's who cares if you think this is going to benefit you.
Yeah.
And you want to take the time to have this space and experience for yourself to put your own energy and intention into healing.
Yeah.
I see no downside.
Well, I do want to put an asterisk on that because like we mentioned a lot of at the beginning of the episode what we define as this alternative medicine field. Acupuncture, yoga, chiropractic, even energy healing, ayahuasca, I don't think we mentioned, like things like that, right?
Yeah.
Even cannabis. I think it can easily go
wild.
Yeah, go wild, wrong direction. Did you hear about, during the pandemic? I mean, you heard about like you heard about people during the pandemic thinking that drinking bleach was going to prevent them from getting COVID because, some president back then mentioned it and other people like latched on. There was even a family in Florida who made a business out of it. Like they were selling bleach to like drink. And like they were the way they marketed, like they had so much conviction in it that they actually made money from it and were able to sell it. And so that's where I worry, right? Because if this stuff is not approved by medical boards and if it's not approved by insurance, like how does one know which remedies, therapies, practices are
Ooh.
worth trying and not going to harm them versus the ones that will absolutely harm them.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
I guess common sense, but like sometimes, you know?
Yeah, sometimes you're just looking, you're desperate, or you don't know who to trust. I mean, that's a whole other story of what is truth and what is not. And, you know, that raises a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Should these things be regulated?
Right.
How do you judge? Especially, you know, I think that's kind of the premise behind doing these scientific studies, is to come up with that backstop of evidence. But that can leave something to be desired.
Yeah.
And then how do you judge for yourself?
Yeah.
I'm not drinking bleach, y'all.
I'm not
doing it. Not gonna be able to do it.
Nope. All right. So let's get to wrapping this up to the 20 cents segment. So 20 cents is the segment of the show where both Lizzy and myself, Lissa, get 60 seconds to give our 2 cents on today's topic, whether we think it is a net positive or a net negative. Where does 20 cents come from?
You get the opinion of 2 dimes.
All right, Liz, you are first up on the clock. Is alternative medicine worth it? 60 seconds starts
Let's go.
now.
All right. For me, alternative medicine is worth it. I personally have, I use acupuncture. I get massages regularly. I have had some fascinating experiences with medical marijuana and meditation, a whole bunch of stuff, yoga, etc. And the benefit has been significant in my life. And I don't think I have personally incurred that dramatic of costs relative to the benefit. And then I also, kind of to my point earlier, feel like if you feel like this is beneficial to you and want to put your time and resources into it, then it is. It is by nature of that. So for me, alternative medicine is a net positive.
Positive. You always have extra time on the clock.
Efficient. I am efficient. Because I talk so much before that. I give my whole case already. All right. What about you, Lissa P? Is alternative medicine worth it?
All right. So, alluding to what I said earlier about the integration of traditional Western medicine with alternative medicine and including Eastern medicine, I think that I am 100% net positive on using them in a complementary way. Mm-hmm. Like one doesn't replace the other. If it's something that obviously needs a quick fix, it needs research studies to back it, it needs to be covered by insurance, like all those reasons are reasons for me to go to like traditional doctors.
Right.
But if it's long-term healing that I want to do for myself, and even in desperation where nothing else is working, I'm going to try these therapies as long as they're safe and not going to harm me in the long term. So no bleach for me, but overall, alternative medicine, net positive.
Yeah, nailed it.
All
I
right.
think that's a critical point. I'm going to add that into mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to add it in. Integrative approach. I'm not foregoing traditional medicine. I broke my ankle a couple months ago. I was not about to heal that with some herbs.
Nope.
But net positive for both of us.
Cool. Now, remember, this is what we think at this moment in time. Can't nobody make that decision but you. So what do you think? Is alternative medicine worth it?
Hit us up. Let us know what you think. DM us on Instagram at NetNetPodcast or email us at hi@netnetpodcast.com. And if you want to follow us individually, here's where you can find us.
I'm at Wealth for Women of Color on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
And you can follow me on social at live_well_Lizzy on Instagram and TikTok.
All references, statistics, and resources mentioned can be found in our show notes. This podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be constituted as financial advice
or medical advice.
Remember to always do your own research, consult a professional as needed, and feel empowered to make your own decisions.